coming in and going, you know guys, if you really use a technique called blown lift, which is something that has been around for a long time, but it's a way of integrating the propulsion slipstreams in with the wing and the aerodynamics, you can get lift coefficients as high as like 10. That translates into short or to slow speeds. That translates into very short distances. In doing that, the physics drives you to very significant payload multipliers. For a given airframe design and weight, you can get between 2 and 3 times higher payload fraction using that extreme short takeoff and landing approach than you can with a purely vertical design, just because of the energy penalties that are required to lift something vertically rather than using the wing throughout the entire flight envelope. What that looks like in practice is here. That our level 0 design requirement is the Wall Street heliport. It's about a 300 by 100 foot space. That's what has sized what we're working to get in and out of. Basically a fixed wing airplane with the operational flexibility of a helicopter, but the cost structure of a fixed wing airplane. So to be able to do both the volume and passenger load, 9 passengers here, in and out of this space, and at the operational tempo that fixed wings can do. And on top of that, the electric revolution, one of the real benefits, you've heard a lot about it, is the noise. On the left is what Blade does today, or a conventional turbine helicopter. This is the noise footprint of a single engine turbine helicopter going out of Wall Street. And that's the footprint of the Electra eSTOL for comparison. And of course, a lot of people talk about, well, you go from Manhattan, say, to JFK. You can do that route today on Blade, and I encourage everybody who hasn't done that to do it, because it's a real example of what urban air mobility looks like, and you can save a lot of time in doing that. The beauty of the hybrid electric space is that you can keep going. You can go to the Hamptons, you can go to Martha's Vineyard or Boston, and you can even keep going further than that, and you can do things like the run from Manhattan to Washington, D.C., which no matter how you do it today, it's about 4 hours before any kind of delays come in. The eSTOL allows you to go out of Manhattan and down into close in this case, Tyson's Corner in the Washington area. We're developing 2 airplanes. On the left is a technology demonstrator, on the right is the product. The product is the 9-passenger single pilot, although there are 2 cockpit stations in the front. 500 miles before the reserves, the normal FAA reserves in this. 175 knots, so about 200 miles an hour cruise speed. Fits into that 300 by 100 foot space, which also happens to be the size of a soccer field, which there are soccer fields. They're ubiquitous around the world. And then the low acoustics to be able to operate repeatedly into those environments. Since the last Up Summit in Bentonville, where it was all view graphs, we built the first airplane. We rolled it out in June. We got the Special Airworthiness Certificate, the FAA approval 2 weeks ago. We're in the taxi test operations today, and stay tuned. We hope to have more news on that soon. It's the third stage of what we see as a 5-step process to commercialize the eSTOL concept. We started in 2020. We did the hybrid electric propulsion system for the first 2 years, focusing on that. Now we've done the 2-seat technology demonstrator, manned, 3,000 pounds, 150 kilowatt turbo generator. The next step is the 9-seat pre-production prototype. That's the 9-passenger, about a 500 kilowatt system in that. And then right behind that is the FAA certified product. Okay, but that's not what I came to talk to you about today. What I came to talk to you about is the concept of paying forward. The idea that every person in this room had somebody in their background who motivated them, inspired them, lit that spark of their imagination that put you on the course to where you are being here today. And there was this nice article in the Wall Street Journal a few months ago that talked about model rockets. We read that with great interest. Probably many of you saw this article, probably saw yourself in this article. We were particularly interested because one of the things we did at our family after we sold Aurora Flight Sciences to Boeing in 2017 was we bought Estes Industries, which is the iconic model rocket provider, started by a guy named Vern Estes and his wife Glida back in 1958. 500 million small model rocket engines to date. What Vern did was really commercialize the automated manufacturing of the model rocket motors. In our own family, we grew up, it's a third generation rocket family. I got handed a catalog by a kid in front of me in 5th grade. That changed my life. We did it with our sons, our family as they were growing up, and now we're with the grandchildren. And we're not the only one. Our host today grew up has a similar story of model rockets being an influential part of his development and intellectual formation here, as well as I'm sure learning how to climb trees among many other things. And when we bought Estes, it was actually in bankruptcy. That topic came up yesterday. I spent most of my career trying to avoid the bankruptcy courts in Delaware, but I have since learned that actually you can get some pretty good deals there, as you saw yesterday with Littinger and the materials operation. So we bought Estes. Their previous owner had run into some difficulties. We bought it out of the Delaware courts in order to preserve it for STEM education, because I had become involved in something called the Team America Rocketry Challenge, which is a joint venture between the Aerospace Industries Association and the National Association of Rocketry, which was started as a one-time thing back in 2003 to help build the workforce for future aerospace, and 20 years later is still going strong. Over 100,000 high school kids have participated in this, and it has achieved its goal of not only helping build a next generation workforce, but building a diverse workforce that reflects America and the society that we are. Over 40% of the participants have been young women, over a quarter of the participants have been young people of color, and we had a milestone this year where the first graduate of TARC, who was a high school student back in the first TARC of 2003, was the pilot on Crew 6. Woody Hoberg flew on a Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station as the first astronaut alumni of the TARC program. A lot of the astronauts today, the original core all grew up flying model airplanes. Today's astronauts grew up flying model rockets, and part of what we're all about is making sure that that's there in the future. One of the things I love about the hobby is it is incredibly realistic and good training for the careers that all of us do. One of the first things you learn when you deal with hardware, it's been said, is humility. And that is absolutely right. The things in the model world and the things in the real world mirror each other really closely. One of Estes uses a lot of black powder. There was one domestic supplier of it until about a year and a half ago, and with a euphemistic industrial accident, there went to 0 suppliers in the United States. So we also went and bought this plant in Louisiana and have spent the last year and a half bringing it back online. It turns out that in addition to Estes, which is the largest single consumer of the black powder, there's 2 other big groups that turn out to be very important in this. One is the muzzle loaders, people who are into weapons that were designed before about 1865. And the second is people who use 155 millimeter shells, which is another topic that got a lot of attention yesterday, which are in great demand today. Every major munitions in the United States, even though black powder went out with the development of smokeless powder after the Civil War, every munition still has small amounts of black powder in it as the initiator for the energetics. So the Department of Defense, the Title III program, has been a huge partner with us in bringing this facility back online, making sure there's a domestic supplier, and now also reshoring other specialty chemicals that are precursors in the energetics development. Closing thought here is just that this is an important part of what every one of us do. I know everybody in this room is incredibly slammed, incredibly busy, but you have to take the time to pay forward. There's no way to pay those people back. You can only pay forward is the line. And this was a huge part. I just give enormous credit and admiration to Ross and to Cyrus. This was the event on Tuesday out at Lakewood where we had seniors. The whole school was out there, but my favorite part was the way the seniors were paired with the kindergartners and into teams that were building and flying these rockets. And that shows that you're never too young to start this process of paying forward in that. It was an incredible addition to the Up Summit. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for your leadership in this. And thanks for organizing the whole thing. Appreciate it.
Let's see, does this work? Go ahead, Brian. We're doing a little audible here. I don't think that this room fully appreciates how many entrepreneurs that John has created. And I'll just name a few. So Adam Woodworth, is Adam Woodworth in the room? He's over there. Okay, you heard him yesterday from Wing. CEO of Wing, Aurora Flight Sciences, John. Paul Aramenko, I know he's not here. CEO of Universal Hydrogen, John. Billy Thalheimer, is Billy in the room? Where's Billy? I know he's around here somewhere. Billy from Regent, you saw him give a great talk yesterday. John. Obviously, I benefited from John's leadership. John is one of our industry's greatest assets. John gives young engineers who show some entrepreneurial interest way more responsibility than they deserve. And the people that step up to that have gone on to become great leaders in our industry, and I just named a few of them. And you saw the first thing that John, I'll tell you, after the Boeing acquisition, one of the first things John said to me was to point out that Estes was in bankruptcy. And his interest in it was not in making it a big profitable business that would do all these other things. It was bringing it back to the United States of America from where it had gone offshore. It was building jobs in the United States, and it was getting those rockets back in the hands of young kids who can be inspired in the way that John was and in the way that he inspired us. So I want to thank John.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you. If you want to fly your own Estes rocket, they're right outside the door, and there's one for everybody to pick up. The only thing is you have to fly it before you take it home. So thank you, Cyrus.
Thank you, John. Oh, round of applause for John Langford.